Essence Stones are the most important thing in solo leveling or Rise, as they allow you to pull for the best characters in the game. And next month we're getting 2 brand new hunters who both will likely be very good, so to give you the best chances of pulling them, you're going to need as many Essence Stones as you can possibly get. Which is why in this video I'll be going over how you can get 1000 free Essence Stones every single week thanks to the brand new Battlefield of Trials challenge mode. And this is the mode right here. It does reset every single week, and just like the regular Battlefield of Trials, you have the player mode where you just play as Sung Jin Woo, and then you also have the hunters mode where you do play as hunters as well. And just like the regular Battlefield of Trials as well, for each floor you'll have a boss that you have to take out, which all have their own passives and the recommended element for you to use. And the way you actually do go about getting these free Essence Stones is by completing the reward missions. And for these missions, they are the exact same missions for every single floor on every single, I guess, gameplay mode, if you want to call it that. So you don't need to think about too much when it comes to actually completing these things, as the first one is speedrun, which is win within 75 seconds and you get 30 low tier mana crystals. And then the final two are called hunter elements, which basically say if you use 1 or more fire element hunters and win, you can get 25,000 gold, or if you use 2 or more fire element hunters and win, you can get 50 free Essence Stones. And then because in total there's actually 10 different floors for you to complete, and then because each floor does give you 50 Essence Stones, it does then mean once you complete all of the reward missions for the player side, you can earn 500 Essence Stones. And then obviously with the hunter side, there is also another 500 Essence Stones up for grabs, assuming that you do complete all of the missions, which in total will allow you to get the 1000 free Essence Stones. So then let's start off with the player side and how you can actually maximize your Jinwoo and also all of your hunters so you can get those free 500 Essence Stones very easily. And starting off with Sung Jinwoo, it is going to be very important that you do equip the correct skills, as the vast majority of the stages within the player side, all of the enemies do have a break gauge, which means you're going to need quite a bit of break damage. And then because every stage is also weak to fire damage, it does mean the Wildfire skill, which is the fire version of Death Stance, is an amazing skill for you to use, as not only does it do heavy break damage, which is amazing, but it also increases its own skill damage by 30% when attacking enemies with their elemental weakness, which will be all the time, so basically you'll get a free 30% extra damage. And then the next skill is Decimation, which is definitely the best skill that you're going to want to run, and this is the fire version of Armor Break, which I do believe you get completely for free through one of Sung Jinwoo's job changes, which is pretty good, so everybody can have this. And the reason why this skill is so good because of its massive damage multiplier that you can have with it, as well as its ability to do almighty break damage, which is obviously the most amount of break damage any skill can do in the game. And plus it also does increase your critical hit damage by a certain amount depending on the actual rarity of it. Fortunately, mine is legendary because I got extremely lucky, which means when I was actually playing through this, I was actually able to just one-shot a lot of the bosses, which was quite funny. Other skills for just pure damage, you have Detonation, which is the fire version of Dagger Toss. This skill is pretty good, however you do need to get right up close and personal with your enemies, as basically it will throw the daggers in sort of like a fan shape, so in order to make sure you hit all of them, you're going to need to make sure that you're really close to your enemy. Crosshairs is also an amazing rune, as it's the fire version of Vertical Art, and this is really good because it travels across the whole map, so when you come to fight the final stage, where you've got to break a ton of different crystals, then it means something like this, which has a ton of AoE damage, can be really useful, but it is also just very good against bosses and elite monsters, as the damage against bosses and elite monsters with this skill will increase by 45%. And then when it comes to using weapons on Jinwoo, it's very important that you just don't use any weapon that is of the water attribute, as all of the enemies within all of these stages will be resistant to water damage. So just make sure that you're not using any of the water attribute weapons that you do have, but instead you're making sure that you're either using just any other great weapons like the Shadow Scythe or Plumflower Sword, or other great fire weapons. As the 3 best fire weapons for Sung Jinwoo are going to be Phoenix Soul. This is going to be the best one, as it has a ton of core attack damage, especially if you do get its first dupe. Then you have Vulcan's Rage, which is a very good weapon for this game mode, mainly just because of the shield that it does give you, which is going to be really useful and save you a ton of HP. And then finally you have the Orb of Avarice, mainly just for its huge amount of skill damage that it can deal. And then finally for the player mode, it's really important obviously that you do use the right team, as you're going to need to use 2 or more fire elemental hunters to get those 50 Essence Stones in every single stage, which will easily, in my opinion, make characters like Emma Laurent and also Yu Soo-hyun absolutely amazing for this game mode, as they do buff your damage quite a lot. And then of course you could also bring Choi in your teams as well, as Choi has the ability to burn and also do defense shredding on his support skill as well. And then the final fire hunter you can use in these stages is actually Song Cheol, who unfortunately is not very good, as his support skill will inflict burn, which is again pretty decent. However, he does give you a normal monster damage increase, which is practically useless, as you're just fighting non-stop bosses as opposed to normal monsters. And then for the final hunter slot that you do have, I just use someone like Min Byung-gu because he does offer healing and also damage buffs. And then you've also got characters like Lee Bora, who's also really good, as she can apply her charm debuff. Or if you wanted to, you could use someone like Yu Jinho to give and create a potion with his support skill and also do medium break damage. So yeah, essentially essentially your support skills are basically Emma Lawrence, Yu Soo-hyun, or you could put Choi in there, and then just basically any other character who can help keep you alive but also support your damage as well would be the optimum setup. So then when it actually came to me beating all of these stages for a lot of the earlier ones, because my Jimmu is a lot stronger than these stages, it did mean that I was actually able to one-shot or just kill the enemies extremely, really quickly. So then when it came to me actually beating these stages, it was actually pretty easy for a lot of the early ones. But overall, when it comes to just general tips with the enemies, obviously it's just going to be just learning their attack patterns, and most importantly just taking your time in these stages, as I believe you have 3 minutes for each stage. And because the battle mission that does give you 30 low tier mana crystals is for winning within 75 seconds, the value in that is not really that high, so you don't need to bother about it too much, and just instead just focusing on making sure that you do actually beat it whilst using 2 or more fire hunters, so then you can get your free essence stones. And then all of these bosses will have these sort of like damage zones around them, which will just do continuous damage to you over time, which can get really annoying, which is why again I brought a character like Min Byung-gu to keep me alive but also support me in damage, which does mean when you're using your break damage skills, like a skill like Decimation for example, it does have a huge amount of range, so you don't really have to stand right in the enemy's face to deal break damage for them. So just make sure that you are also keeping your distance when you're fighting these enemies until you've broken them, so then you can actually go ahead and do all of your main damage. And then when it came to the hunter side of things, again, it's pretty similar stuff. Obviously you want to use 2 fire hunters, so characters like Emma Lawrence is going to be really good as she's the only fire character in the game that does deal break damage. And then of course characters like Yu Soo-hyun and then also Choi Jong-in are also really good, as they are really great fire DPSs. But what's also great about Yu Soo-hyun and also Choi is that they have a lot of range damage, which means you don't have to get close to your enemies to be able to deal damage, which means you can avoid the damage over time zones that the enemies have, which is going to be really useful. So then when it came to actually beating these stages, my main focus was just starting off with Emma Lawrence so I could get some break damage off if I wanted to. And my main plan when just going into these stages was just to be able to use Emma Lawrence so I could apply the heat emission buff to my entire team, which will increase his defense pen and fire damage, I believe, which once I then brought in Min Byung-gu to apply the debuffs and then also his own ultimate buffs, it then meant I could bring in Yu Soo-hyun to have an extra bit of damage as well, which would be really good. So then I could clear the stage as fast as possible and just delete the boss really quickly. And then an enemy that I think a lot of people could struggle with on the hunter side of things would be the Soda Light Mandrill, as this enemy has a lot of movement and also just a lot of damage in general, and it is extremely important that you do bring a character that does deal break damage, as this enemy will enter sort of like a state where you need to break it in time or else it's about to do a ton of damage to you, which is why again it is very important that you do bring a character like Emma Lawrence, who is really good, as she can do a ton of damage to bosses like the Soda Light Mandrill, but can also break them when you need to. And then with the final stage, pretty much just same things normally, just use Emma Lawrence burn up skill just so you can do a bunch of AoE damage, so you can break as many crystals as you possibly can, which once you've then done that, you would have completed all of the stages, meaning hopefully you'll be able to claim 1,000 free essence stones. So yeah, there you have it. That is how you can get 1,000 free essence stones every single week through the brand new challenge mode in Battlefield of Trials. And overall, if you did like this video or you found it useful just in general, then don't forget to like and subscribe and click the link down below to support me as a creator, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace!